Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Quinlin, and again I'm joined by my mom. So this time we're not discussing her favorite YA book, but we are discussing a series that we both read.
Hi.
And that series is Renegades by Marissa Meyer, and if you need a quick summary, it's just basically about a superhero and a supervillain, and the superhero is Adrian and our supervillain is Nova, and they both have really unique powers, and it's about their struggle kind of for dominance. So we'll talk a little bit about it non-spoilery. I would definitely recommend. I think this is like a fun series. It has a lot of action, although I do have kind of a comment on that later. And then it is just kind of a fun with the character dynamics, and I think the superpowers are really fun. So first I'll let my mom talk a little bit and then I'll jump in.
Yes, I enjoyed the characters in the book, and I kind of enjoyed the basic premise, which I think isn't too spoilery to say that there were people with special powers who were being oppressed by the normal people, and then Ace Anarchy kind of rose up and stopped the oppression of the people with special powers.
Right.
But then
he has telekinesis, so he has this helmet that makes him really powerful.
Right.
So he killed a bunch of people who work in government and stuff like that, and kind of made the world into a 20-year period of chaos. And then the Renegades rose up, and they are the good guys, but there is kind of a deeper question of who really are the good guys and who really are the bad guys.
Exactly. So that's kind of an interesting premise of, it was bad to oppress the people with special powers, but then there was this anarchy and chaos where it was really, just the kind of dog-eat-dog kind of world. And then the Renegades restore order, but how much are they, good and restoring justice, and how much are they kind of being their own kind of oppression? So those are some of the interesting larger issues that are addressed in what is mostly just kind of a fun book to read, or a series to read.
Yeah, I do just recommend this book if you're just in the mood for some fun superhero stuff. I think one of my favorite aspects of this book is I would say are the characters, of course, because I'm such a character person, but then also I just thought what was really fun about this series is the superpowers, because there are I do feel a lot of magic in books are usually elemental based, and then even when we do see superpowers, there are obviously there are some of the standard superpowers like invisibility, telekinesis. We talked about the main kind of bad guy has powerful telekinesis. There's flying and stuff like that, but then there's a lot of kind of more unique superpowers, and that's where kind of our main characters come into play. So Adrian, our main good guy, he has the ability to bring anything he draws to life, which is just super cool. And then Nova, she has the ability to put people to sleep with her touch, and then she also never sleeps. So it's just a very kind of unique, and then there's a bunch of other superpowers that I'm not going to go into, but there's just so many unique superpowers that I think makes for just a really fun story.
I agree.
Yeah, so I think we'll probably jump into spoilers now. So if you want to check out this book, you definitely should, but unless you haven't read it or unless you want to get spoiled, leave. So we're going to start with spoilers for just Renegades, so even if you haven't read the rest of the series, you can still stick around because we're just going to talk about this. It ended with the revelation that Ace Anarchy is still alive, and my mom has some rants to say about this. First of all, about Nova being a bad spy, and then she was also upset that the revelation of Ace was not revealed earlier in the book, and she'll kind of elaborate on that. So go ahead.
Yeah. So, first of all, it really did not ring true to me that almost none of the characters suspected that Nova might be a spy. One character does, notably, but the others are all just oh, really? That's an interesting opinion that the arch-villain of all time, Ace Anarchy, maybe wasn't such a bad guy? And I feel no, that was really stupid of Nova to express any kind of positivity at all toward Ace Anarchy. And I feel she wouldn't be that dumb to do it, that we could have we have her internal thoughts throughout this, so we could certainly have her internal thoughts, which we have at other moments of kind of gritting her teeth not to say things like that. But I can't believe that she would say things like that and that others would accept it as just, oh, that's an interesting opinion. Hadn't thought about it that way. So I really thought that she wasn't a very good spy in the sense that she didn't hide her own opinions very well. And so I kind of think the author could have done that better, actually. That there might have been more looks that made the one character suspicious, or things like that that weren't as obvious as her just speaking out about things. So that's my big rant about that. The other thing was the Ace Anarchy thing. So we're following Nova throughout. We're getting her thoughts and her experience of the world and what she's doing. And somehow it never crosses her mind, recorded for us, that her uncle is alive and that she's consulting him. And I feel like she obviously would have consulted him before applying to become a renegade. And so the fact that we not only don't see that scene, but we don't even hear about it at all, to me was like, oh, you know, the author is kind of letting us down. Like, we're not as privy to all her thoughts as we thought we were. And yes, it was an exciting reveal to have at the end, so I understand why she did it, but I just felt like it would have come up if the way that we were following Nova, it would have and should have come up earlier. So those are my two big objections to Renegades. But again, overall, I felt like it was a fun read. It's pretty fast moving. The characters are interesting. The kind of overall questions are interesting, especially, you know, when you're starting the first one, there's a little bit more of a question of who's really the good guy, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys.
Okay, so next, of course, is Arch Enemies. So if you haven't read Arch Enemies, you should probably leave. We're just going to talk about spoilers for Arch Enemies, though, so even if you have... So if you haven't read Supernova yet, you can still stick around. And we don't really have that much to say collectively on this book, but the one thing that I did feel, and so for me it was a bit of a unique experience because I read the first two books in the series a long time ago, and then I picked it up again more recently when my mom was reading it because I wanted to be able to discuss the third book with her that I read for the first time just very recently. Rereading it, it wasn't as a fun experience, and I did kind of notice, for me at least, that I felt like there wasn't a lot of action, even though this is a superhero book. I thought in the first one there was a good amount of action, in the last one there's a good amount of action, but in this one, the main action sequences we get is we get a brief action sequence at the end, and then we get a lot of action, or at the beginning, and then we get a lot of action at the end. And in between, it's a lot of kind of constructing the plot, and I understand why that's necessary for the book to be successful, and there's a lot that you need to build up to and understand in order to have the second book. And then even like kind of the dramatic, her breaking in and trying to get Ace Anarchy's helmet, like she has to learn a lot about the helmet. Like it can't be too easy, and so I understand why she had to kind of do all the recon and stuff like that in order to get the helmet, but it did feel like there wasn't a lot of action, so rereading it for me was not the most fun experience, just because I felt it kind of dragged on just because there wasn't so much fast paced, I felt like, especially in the middle. But I still had fun with the series, and I do remember having a lot of fun, especially the first time I read this series.
With this one also, she really does some obvious spy things, like asking about the helmet directly and how it could be breached, how the Cubitson could be breached. And that just seemed completely crazy that people would suspect her.
That people wouldn't suspect her.
It seemed crazy that people wouldn't suspect her because of all the things she was asking, just openly. So, again, that would just be kind of a continuation of the rant from the first one. But it seems like there might have been some other ways for her to figure that out. For example, when in the first book she gets access to the computer system, I mean, she was inputting things, so she has that access. You know, and she looks up like the event of when her parents were killed, and it just seems like there might be other information in those computer files, not specifically about her parents, but that could tell her more about the helmet and how it was encased and how you might be able to unencase it without her specifically asking these things.
Okay, and then of course finally we have Supernova, so if you haven't read this book, we are going to go into the spoilers. But I thought this book was insane. I flew through it, and I read it in a weekend. I have a vlog of it if you guys want to watch. But it was just crazy. I just thought it was so much fun. Like, I forgot how much fun I had reading these books and how kind of interesting and fast-paced. And I thought this one had a lot more action and even just a lot more kind of like character dynamics. You get to see kind of how the characters turn out, and like just like their full character arcs and just everything kind of came into play, and it was just an epic conclusion. I had so much fun with this book the whole time. Like I couldn't stop smiling or just like getting excited about this book. I just had so much fun with it. And then the ending shook me to my core. Not just mostly the ending with Magpie revealing that she's actually Evie. That shook me to my core. I was so shook, and now I'm bummed because I don't think that there's going to be any more books, but she definitely kind of left an open ending, so I feel a little bit unsatisfied. Like I want another book or at least like a short story or something, but I don't think it's gonna happen, which is too bad. My mom does have some things to say about what she predicted, but yeah, that's kind of my main thoughts. I was just really honestly happily overwhelmed by how good this book was, and it definitely surprised me because I didn't have so much fun with Renegades or Arch Nemesis, and I don't think I would have picked it up so soon or at this moment in time if my mom hadn't read this series. And so I was just really pleased with how it turned out, and I got really excited, and now I'm kind of bummed because it's over.
So I should mention that I read this series on the recommendation of Quinlin, and so I was reading all three and got through all three before she read the first two and finished the third. But yes, I also found this, just a really fun book, a quick read. It's fast-paced and everything. I did want to say, and Quinlin can back me up here, in the very first book, I predicted that Nova's parents were killed by Ace Anarchy. I mean, that he had hired somebody to do it because of the way they were depicting that the father was clearly trying to distance himself from his own brother, Ace. So he clearly didn't really totally support what Ace was doing. And that he was mentioning the Renegades, that the Renegades would help save them. And I could see Ace not being too happy about that. So I really had thought from the beginning. I was a little confused though about why he showed up then at the apartment. I mean, I think definitely because the assassin hadn't come back, that he thought he better check it out. But I am wondering why he decided to have the whole family killed instead of seeing if either of the kids had powers that would help him. Or also once he arrived, did he really think that, putting people to sleep was a good enough power to help him out? So anyway, I predicted that, but I actually thought she was going to find it out through the computers or even talking with Captain Chromium, because he could have been recounting something, because she had looked up her family's case in the computer files, and there was part of it that was like restricted, but I thought, well, if she's a renegade long enough, maybe she'll get access or figure out how to get access. So I thought she was going to find it out that way.
Yeah, I think that would have been a better reveal.
And I do think it would have been a better reveal. I agree. I thought it was kind of the classic, arch villain reveals all at the very end reveal, but I found it, a little unrealistic, that I thought he would have that Ace, even though Nova was starting to believe Captain Chromium, that Ace would have tried harder to convince her that what Captain Chromium said was not true and why she should still stay with Ace. So I didn't think he'd just blurt it all, even though that is the kind of standard arch villain thing to do. All series, very enjoyable, good reads, a lot of fun, some deeper issues to ponder.
Okay, so thank you guys so much for watching the video. Again, let me know if you like seeing my mom on my channel, and let me know if we should read any other series together, if you have any recommendations, or you just want us to review other series, maybe that we've read or we haven't read. So yeah, and feel free to comment down below anything you'd like, and we'll see you in another video. Bye!
Bye!